This weekend, we're getting the opening for Sonic the Hedgehog 3 and Mufasa the Lion King. And right now, according to some of these projections, it's looking like Sonic the Hedgehog 3 will actually beat out Mufasa the Lion King at the domestic box office. However, since Mufasa is also going to experience a few extra days at the global box office, they're probably going to end up taking a bigger global haul during this opening weekend and possibly actually out-earn Sonic the Hedgehog 3 at the box office in total, assuming that word of mouth is decent for it and things should hold up. This is being reported on from Variety, so let's take a look at what they're actually saying for the numbers that these movies are going to bring in for their respective studios. Sonic the Hedgehog 3 to outrun Mufasa at domestic box office, but Lion King prequel will rule globally. And also one thing to consider when looking at how much each of these respective movies are going to make, the budget for around Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is, I don't know it right now, but the other two movies in the franchise were $90 million. So it stands to reason it's probably going to be around $90 million for this one as well. Meanwhile, Mufasa the Lion King cost around $200 million. And since Disney tends to spend more on their marketing than what other studios do, like Paramount for Sonic, they're probably looking to, they need around $600 million at the global box office in order to be considered a success for the studio. Meanwhile, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 probably needs to make around $300 million in order to be considered a success for their studio. So just keep that in mind when looking at what both these movies are expected to make, because I'm thinking when this is all said and done, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 will probably make more money for Paramount than what Mufasa the Lion King will make for Disney, assuming that it actually makes money to begin with, because whether or not Mufasa is profitable, still I have my doubts about that. A blue anthropomorphic speed demon is expected to outpace the future king of the Pride Lands at the weekend box office. Paramount's Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is projected to claim a leading $55 million to $60 million from 3,800 North American theaters in its debut, while Disney's Mufasa the Lion King should be trotting close behind with $50 million from more than 4,000 venues. And also, I want to point this out, Mufasa the Lion King is opening up to more theaters and still is expected to make less money than Sonic the Hedgehog 3. Sonic doesn't open at the international box office until Christmas Day, so Mufasa will have free reign over global charts. The Lion King prequel is pacing to add an additional $130 million overseas for a promising global start of $180 million. And yes, $180 million global start actually isn't bad, but when you compare that to the first Lion King movie or the first live action Lion King movie that came out in 2019, that made $191 million domestically during its opening weekend. So just let me reiterate that. The 2019 Lion King movie made $190 million just in North America during its opening weekend. Meanwhile, this new prequel to it is expected to make $180 million globally during its opening weekend. And both movies were released in December. And yet this one, the earliest release date was in July, excuse me. But still, in the US, it opened up, or domestically, it opened up in December. So that's what I'm talking about right there. But still, the first one came out in 2019. That's obviously doing significantly better than what this one did. And this one, I'm talking like the 2019's Lion King, made $1.6 billion globally during its entire theatrical run. I don't think Mufasa the Lion King is going to go anywhere near that $1.6 billion mark. Like I said earlier, I think it's even up in the air whether or not they're going to actually hit that $600 million mark that they need in order to be considered profitable. I think it's definitely possible for them, but a lot of that is predicated on word of mouth, because if people watch this movie and they don't really care for it, well, then I think that's going to tank their box office results. But if there is good word of mouth and we see a stronghold during its second weekend, then I guess it is possible that it could still continue on and be profitable. But one thing when it comes to Disney movies, especially these last couple of years, they're usually front loaded as far as audiences going out to see them. And I think this is the perfect time for that, because it's more for the family audience. People are going to come out to see it. Parents have their kids home. They're going to go out see Mufasa the Lion King during the Christmas weekend. So I think it is going to be it's going to be a little bit front heavy. I don't necessarily know if the second weekend drop is going to be anything bad, but we'll just have to wait and see. That's really going to determine if this movie is going to be profitable or if it's just going to be another failure for Disney. Neither film is expected to break franchise opening records. In fact, Sonic is tracking for a trilogy low. Actually, that's something I got pulled up to because, yeah, trilogy low, $50 million would be a low for the trilogy, but you all have to keep in mind there is that other competition out there right now, and still $50 to $60 million wouldn't be a bad opening for this. Obviously, Sonic the Hedgehog, the first one when it came out in 2020, that was before things got shut down. The theaters have been a little bit different following that. Sonic the Hedgehog 2 was the first one that came out after all that jazz, and you can see $70 million or $72 million domestically during its opening weekend. So Sonic the Hedgehog 3 just below that, but still kind of in line with what we're seeing with the previous two movies. But even then, with all that said and done, I think you can expect Sonic the Hedgehog 3 to probably end up with around $300 to $400 million pretty easily at the box office, unless word of mouth is just terrible. If this movie is particularly bad compared to the other movies, then I think we're going to see a steep drop off and it probably won't make that mark. But I think it, all things considered, with the enthusiasm for not only the movies, but just the fan base surrounding Sonic, I think we can expect to see Sonic the Hedgehog 3 pretty easily make around $300 to $400 million and most likely actually be profitable for Paramount. Where was I? December releases aren't known to deliver robust debuts, but if reviews and word of mouth are favorable, can enjoy staying power into January and beyond. Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle, for example, launched with just $36 million in 2017, but ended up earning a mammoth $404 million domestically and $962 million globally. And last December's Wonka notched a decent $39 million to start and tapped out with $218 million in North America and $634 million worldwide. So yeah, like this points out, it really is all predicated on word of mouth for both of these movies. I think word of the mouth for Sonic will probably be a lot better than what we're seeing with Mufasa right now. Critic score for Mufasa aren't really looking too good, at least the early reviews that are coming in, but that's not really much because it's kind of in line with what we saw with the first one. It's not necessarily a critic's movie. It's more for audiences. Audiences liked Lion King well enough, and I think that's why, or that obviously that's why that movie was such a huge success. I'm just not confident that audiences are going to be as kind when it comes to Mufasa the Lion King. I think word of mouth, I think the user scores are going to be lower once we start getting those coming in. Meanwhile, Sonic the Hedgehog, those aren't usually too strong with critics. It's a little bit better than the Lion King, but still that's kind of mid scores, but audiences really love Sonic. Audiences really liked Sonic the Hedgehog 2. So like I said, it stands to reason that critics will probably give Sonic 3 in the 60s as far as score goes. Keep it in line with this. I think audiences are going to like it unless there's just something, I don't know, just egregiously bad with it, then it'll probably see a steep drop off. But when it's all said and done, I think it is possible. I mean, I think it's likely that Mufasa will probably make more money. I don't think it's necessarily going to make more money for their studio because there is a difference between how much they make at the box office versus how much they make for the studio, considering the budgets for both these movies. Sonic the Hedgehog 3 would have an easier time to actually churn out a profit for Paramount versus Mufasa making a profit for Disney. But there is a world where Mufasa could just have a strong opening weekend or a strong-ish opening weekend and then just kind of nosedive off a cliff during its following weekend. And I could actually foresee a scenario where Sonic the Hedgehog 3 ends up making more money at the global box office than what we saw with Mufasa the Lion King. And if that actually does happen, it just goes to show how far Disney has fallen within the last few years, because just a couple months before the first Sonic the Hedgehog movie came out, the first one made just go back to it right here so I don't have to guess. The first Sonic the Hedgehog movie in February made just over $300 million. The first Lion King movie came out a couple months earlier, made $1.6 billion. And it's possible right now that Sonic the Hedgehog 3 will beat out Mufasa the Lion King at the global box office just depending on what audiences think of these movies. And that's just crazy to think about, because it just goes to show how far Disney has fallen, if that really is the case right now. But let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below. Which one of these movies do you think will do better at the global box office? And which one are you more interested in actually seeing, assuming that you're actually interested in seeing one of these movies? And if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And don't forget to click that like button and share this video out there, because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.